Hey, I lost track of time, guys. I was just looking at the screen and it's like it's 8 p.m. I forgot. So glad to be here, my friends. Let me just fix this up, and I think we're not going to lose our battery today. I made sure I didn't start this up until until I was ready to go. So, like last time, I kind of left it running from like hours ago. So, how are you doing, my friends? Hello, Flo, Mick, Shahal, Ludwig, 9 Volt, Entire Meyer. Hello, Entire Meyer, my good buddy. How are you doing? And Network Madness, Bernard, Michael, Great Gold. Hello, my friend. So, by the way, just kind of starting comment here on the structure, because some people are saying your videos are too long. Actually, Friday night videos have a specific format, so I want to make sure you understand, so you don't have to ask me about the format. The format is this: I talk for half an hour with a specific topic, and then if you don't want to listen to beyond the specific topic, you can leave at half an hour, and the rest is Q&A. So you don't have to go an hour and a half. The hour and a half is for people who want to ask me questions, and this is the only time they can do it. So I allocate that hour for the question. So I just want to make sure the format is clear, because people are saying, well, your videos are too long. Well, the bulk of it is in the first half hour. This video is sponsored by Linode. So Linode is my sponsor, and I myself am really becoming a significant Linode user. I have a lot of stuff on Linode now, and I'm switching my stuff to Linode. It's a good company with very reasonable prices for servers. It's some of their benefits are actually kind of hidden, and you don't see it until you actually compare it with all costs. Like, on Amazon, they'll bill you even for traffic costs, and on Linode, it's all built in. So when they say it's going to cost you $5 a month for a server, it will actually just cost $5 a month for the most part, and which is really, really neat, because if you can set up a web server for as little as $5 a month. So it's very, very simple to do. So anyway, Linode is offering a $100 60-day credit. So if you want to try it out, you can do so and set up a website in WordPress or Nextcloud or Jitsi server like I did in my video, and you can do that very easily for as little as $5 a month. So the format again is that I talk about our topic for tonight, and the topic tonight is something that I've been asked over and over, and that is, what do I need to do to get privacy? Because as you know, I have many videos, and my videos are, kind of like talking about specific solutions at any one moment, the Google phones, VPNs, and that. And it's never clear what the big picture is. So I'm going to give you a good big picture explanation for next half an hour or so before I get into your questions. And then you can ask me anything you want in the following hour. So if you follow a lot of channels or blogs and forums on the internet relating to cybersecurity and privacy, you will find that in my mind there's a little bit of a misconception about what the approach is, because the approach to privacy is not as simple as saying harden my platform. I'm going to use something like Graphene OS, and I have to have a Linux computer and all this, and some people are like bashing me because I didn't use Linux in my videos, even though I use a Linux computer all day, because they just don't necessarily understand the threat and what exactly I'm protecting against. And if you understand what you're protecting against, you will find it's not actually that complicated. There's not that many things you got to do to cover 90% of the problem. So what I'm going to explain to you first is just the basic issue that I'm trying to cover. And then from here, from the basic issue that we're trying to cover here, we can go into the actual tools that I use to handle that. And one of the things that I want to just make clear is that all of you, every one of you here, Larry, Hey You, Mad Cow, Philip 2, Wajor, Paladin, Robert Paluchowski, all of you are emitting data right now. We're all emitting data. I'm emitting data. Anything you do on the internet emits data. Now, emitting data itself may not necessarily be a concern to a lot of people, except that somebody is collecting that data. This is really if you want to get to the crux of it. Unfortunately, when you emit data to the internet, it just doesn't go there and go to wherever you want to go. Someone is trying to capture it. Someone is trying to make a business out of collecting that data. And the companies that are collecting the data include all the people trying to do what is called fingerprinting. And I'll explain a little bit about how that works. And the other group of people are companies like Palantir, which just went public. And the goal of Palantir is to collect the data on every single human being and put it into their database with the intention of hiring out their services as a private national zucking agency. So Palantir is a private version of the National Zucking Agency. By the way, the National Zucking Agency is one of their clients, I'm sure, as well as the Zucking IA and the Zucking BI. And all of them use Palantir. The LAPD is a big user of Palantir, so Palantir databases. So Palantir is a hired gun with data. So they collect all the data. And some of you said, I don't really care about the data that you collect. That's not important. All I care about is financial data, as one guy said. Oh, there's nothing. I'm not paranoid. I don't need to worry about any of that. Okay. Don't care what you think. Okay. It doesn't matter to me what you think. That's your business. All I'm saying is that Palantir is collecting it and creating a database about each of you. They're collecting a database. The National Zucking Agency is creating a database. All these private little groups. Facebook is creating a database about each and every one of you. So the question is, do you like that? Do you like somebody making a database, a permanent database of each individual, which they may use in the future or not, or however they're going to use it? They can use it to influence you and affect you in some way, and it will affect you. Trust me. Okay? So if some of you say, well, that's not important, well, I can't do anything for you, because if you want your database, if you want a profile of you, a dossier of you out there, owned by somebody else, but not you. And if that's what you want, then you shouldn't really be on this channel, because you don't really, you don't share the same values. The rest of you are in this channel because you share the same values. You don't want that. Instinctively, the little mantra that I always say is that information is power. Information about you is power over you. So what do I do? The goal of privacy, guys, is very simple. Deny them the information. You deny them the power. It's very simple. Okay? Now, I have been a avid privacy guy for a long time. In fact, when the internet first started, I was already being private, even with email. Way back since the beginning of time, I've always been careful about my identities on the internet and what is known about me. And you will find, actually, if you go back, there is no presence of Rob Braxman beyond a certain year, because I made sure that I don't exist on the internet. So I have actually the freedom of framing my identity in my way, because there's no other identity that can correlate with it, because I was not on the internet pushing an identity or going around, going to public forums and Facebook and all this with an identity that it's going to match. So because of that, you will find that everything that I do and talk about relating to privacy is under my name, Rob Braxman. Nothing else exists. Very planned out. Even the way I use email, since email started in the 90s, I was already very concerned about this because I knew somebody would be reading it. So how many of you actually did that? Very, very few of you. So the idea now, guys, is because of what I've experienced and what I've tried to teach here. It's based on simple knowledge of what somebody might do to capture your data. So it's actually quite simple. Somebody actually made a comment in my YouTube channel on one of my videos that he thought I was explaining something different. He said he worked for browsing, fingerprinting companies, ad tracking companies, and he said that in his experience, that tracking is done by having an identity, and then there's like a tree of all sub-identities connected to that person. For example, let's say huge dbyte is on the internet, then all of his IP addresses, his phone numbers, and all that kind of like a tree. Everything collected about huge dbyte will appear like a tree like that. And that's exactly how it's done. But it doesn't start out that way. It starts out with pieces of information. So let me just give you an idea. For Mr. Robot is back, huh? Finally. So when you emit an IP address, for example, so the IP address goes to the internet, and somebody records the IP address. The IP address itself is kind of meaningless until they form some other identity that they can match. And let's say that the IP address is matched to an email address. So there's got to be a data pair. It's always a data pair. IP address, email. Okay, so now they've got the email. Your name is usually on the email. So the name is now there, and then IP addresses. If that name ever appears, or that email ever appears, they can then say, oh, another IP address showed up matching this email address. Oh, a location showed up matching to this email address. Oh, a photo showed up matching to this email address. Oh, a device fingerprint for a phone showed up. It's matched this email address. Now you turn it around. You say, this is an IP address. Oh, this name attached to it, this email attached to it, this other IP address attached to it, this device fingerprint attached to this photo. You can rotate this around, and whatever's on top, it doesn't matter what's on top, but eventually they'll come up with an identity, maybe your name. And now everything is attached to the name. So if you want to think about this way, when you go to a Palantir database, all they have to say is, let me search for Mad Cow. Obviously, Mad Cow's not a real name, but let's say that it is. So you go and search for Mad Cow, and everything that Mad Cow's ever done, all the email addresses, all the IP addresses, everything comes out and gets indexed to Mad Cow. See, it's always a basis of data pairs. Now, if you didn't have this data pair, let's say that you went on the internet and the identity is this IP address and the name is Mad Cow 1. The next time they see it, it's Mad Cow 2. The next time it's Mad Cow 3, a different IP address. There's no way to connect it, even if the names are similar. There's no way to connect it because there's no matching data pair, or in other words, an index. So in order for the data to make any sense, somebody has to, because all of this data is constantly collected, right? This is what's happening on the internet every day. Somebody's collecting the data and matching it. If it doesn't match, the data is useless. Okay, the problem is we cannot stop the data from flowing on the internet because using the internet causes data to flow. So if you understand this, then the actual problem, guys, is very simple. The actual problem is just identity. Identity. If a piece of data has no identity, if it's not connected to a data pair that they can use, the data is garbage. An IP address that is an IP address of a VPN is garbage. Why? Because 1,000 people could be using that same IP address. That doesn't tell them anything. A email address that doesn't correlate to a real name and only is used in certain instances with various email addresses does not lead to an identity if it's not connected to a name. A phone number not connected to an identity is not useful to Google or to whoever is capturing that. It's only useful to the carrier that knows who the real person is, but not out in the open. A photo can be used then as an example. Facial recognition can use to tie up little ends here and connect pieces of data. And that's what Facebook does. That's why Facebook is one of the deadliest. So the goal, guys, it's really simple. prevent data pair. You can't stop the data from flowing if you're going to use a device. All you want to stop is any kind of index that connects a data pair to an existing piece of data. By confusing the data, then nothing is actually collected of any importance. So the solution to privacy is not because you have the most secure phone. It has nothing to do with the fact that you use Graphene OS or Lineage OS. It doesn't have anything to do whether you use Linux or Microsoft Windows. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It has to do with data pairs. And one of the worst things that you can do is be on Facebook, because Facebook by its nature has a real name, and whatever thing that they track on you on Facebook, which is location, IP address, MAC address, and all that, is always matched to a real name. Once that goes into a database, all they have to do is find the occurrence of that IP address or MAC address or photo, and they will match it to the entire internet. Okay, so that is the real secret, guys. It doesn't matter that people say, oh, I got to harden my server and put all this and all this cybersecurity stuff. The fact of the matter is, I have not been hacked. So how interesting is that? I don't really do, I wouldn't say I take extraordinary precautions not to get hacked. I just know, kind of basic stuff. And I actually, never been. Because I just use common sense. If I feel that there's a possibility of getting hacked, I do procedure to clean myself out, and then I know that even if I can't prove that I was hacked, I make sure that I'm not. Okay? So the actual problem, guys, is just preventing the data from getting into some sort of index, preventing the data pair, meaning IP address matched to something else, or email matched to something else, or phone number matched to something else. You try to keep these pieces of information separate. And by separating them, then it is not useful to three-letter agencies. It's not useful to browser fingerprinters. It's not useful to anything. This is one of the reasons I do what I do. So what do, guys? I don't do much that is really complicated, but some of you don't even understand how the data is collected and how it can lead you to being exposed. One of the main things that exposes you is your IP address. Okay, so let's talk about that. So obviously I use a VPN. I have a product, bytesvpn.com. It's in the description. And that's the VPN that I promote. And it's my VPN. And it's a very good VPN. Now, one of the and you can trust a real person rather than some, Lithuanian company like Nord VPN. Who's Nord? Who's Mr. Nord? This is me. So Bytes VPN is me. So when you have a problem with a VPN, you talk to me or my people directly. So it's me. There's no there's an actual person involved with it. And we're a little company, but at least it's trustworthy because you have somebody to trust. But one of the things that you may do that may destroy your privacy is you say, I'm going to use a VPN. So you use a VPN, you put a VPN on your computer. And because of that, then your activities are not necessarily tracked to anything related to IP address. But your family may not be doing that. So you have a case where you're on a VPN, your wife, your children, your teenagers are using the internet without a VPN. Their data then can get matched to yours. They can reuse your email address. For example, they can use your Xbox account, have an IP address attached to an email because it's a Microsoft ID. Then they can match the data, and it's not from your computer, it's from theirs. This is why, in my case, I always use a VPN router. I have a Brax router, and this is one of the most important things I talk about, a Brax router, because it basically makes sure that no one in your household is emitting a data pair that can be attributed to any one of you. One of the things that Facebook can do is actually take MAC addresses and then match it to the IP addresses and match it to device identities of anyone in your household, and then they will actually be able to connect all of you and locations just from one person in the household. It doesn't have to be you. And you don't think about stuff like that. So that is very, very important. That's as very important is that you actually start to think about it collectively, that your IP address can reveal anything about everyone in the household, even though it's just not one person. So the incorrect approach is to say, I'm just going to get a VPN for myself, instead of saying, I'm going to put my VPN on a network so that all of us users in the household use a VPN unless we can't. Like if the bank requires that we don't use a VPN, that'll be an exception. But bank knows who you are anyway. So where you can, you use a VPN, and that prevents all these external parties from collecting this piece of data on you, which is your VPN, which is your IP address and an identity, like a email address, which is attached to your Microsoft ID, Google ID, Apple ID. Okay, that's one piece of data. The other thing that I was saying is that most of the privacy issues nowadays relate to your phone. So what is taken from your phone? Well, one of the key things that's taken from your phone is location. Location matched to IP address will reveal everything, because once they find a location, they can just say, oh, this location is this IP address, location is this email. Everything that you do in that location can be matched in the future as an index. All they have to do is find a location, say within a range of 20 feet square. If I find anybody in the square, then they're in the same household. Or it could be a 50 feet square, 100 feet square, whatever the computation is going to be. And then you get all matched together. Now, where's location being tracked? Locations are being tracked on your phone. And one of the things that I keep telling people that don't realize is that your phone, not only do you have apps that have location. So this is my phone. If you go to each app and turn location off, on a standard Google phone, it doesn't stop Google from collecting your location. It doesn't stop Apple from collecting your location. If you don't believe this, anyone with an iPhone knows this, for goodness sakes. You always said, you are 5 minutes from your destination, and there's Find My Phone, and you can look at every device in your household. They know everything. So don't come and tell me, well, that's not true. You don't have any proof of that. I mean, how much more evidence do you need when you actually just look at Find My Phone, and the phone is already telling you you're 5 minutes from your destination? How do you think it knows that? Because it has the ability to track you 24/7 without any kind of permission, because it's not bound to that. They make the permissions. A de-Googled phone has no Google. The locations on a de-Googled phone are only on the apps. So if you turn location off on all the apps, there's no Google to collect a location. That is one piece of data that cannot be collected and matched to anything. Plus, there's a device fingerprint that can match to the location. Device fingerprint includes your Google ID, your Apple ID, which is an email. So if you stop the collection of these data points, then it kind of becomes a dead end. So your phone has other identifiers, IMSI, IMEI, location I already said, IP address, your email address, your photo, and so on, and serial numbers of the phones. Now, if you actually are using a de-Googled phone, none of that actually gets collected. It's almost like it's no different than a laptop. If you use a de-Googled phone, it's kind of like a laptop. It's like all the sensors start to be meaningless because nobody's collecting it. So I love it. I love the fact that I can use normal apps. Most of the normal apps I can use. Not everything works, but a lot of things do work, and there are alternatives when I can't use it, and it doesn't collect that data. So just 2 points. My Brax router and this alone, which are one of the main products that I sell. And the reason I sell them, because there's a hole in the market. These two things, the Google phone and a Brax router, is enough to block 90% of the data. Well, maybe not 90%. I'd say 70% of the exfiltration of data from you that can be matched to something, assuming you take other safety precautions by minimizing the use of location and apps, and controlling your presence. These phones, for example, have no identity, so they actually don't know. I've never logged into this phone, so obviously there's no identity to the phone. There's no Google ID, no nothing. So this is not connected to anything. There's no identity attached to it. So it's really like a laptop. So it's like running a Linux laptop with no identity to it. So what can be taken from it? Yeah, they can get an IP address if I'm not using a VPN, but I'm using a router, and I'm using cell data if I'm not. Cell data doesn't have a fixed IP address. It's always changing. So cell data is not so much of an issue. It's just VPNs are more important at home. That's why you have a Brax router at home. If you're on the road using cell data, your VPN is not so much of an issue. You actually can survive without a VPN on the road as long as you have the option to use some sort of encryption if you need to. And the option is Orbot. Orbot is available on the Google phone. In fact, I pre-install it, which is Tor. And if you need to do something kind of special, you can switch Tor on, do whatever you need to, and turn it off. And by doing this, you actually don't emit anything, and they're not able to capture it. Now, this is maybe 70% of the game right there. It's not much. Now, let me just tell you before I run out of time here, is the reality is there's very little data that's been collected about me over the years. And I actually, went into some of these databases like location databases, and I found that location and IP address, they don't even match the IP address to a location for me. And I've been using the internet for a very long time. In fact, I have the same IP address for last certainly 18 years. 18 years with the same IP address, and yet they have no match to the location. And why is that? Because of the simple things I've done. Simple. They're not really that complicated. So the data that is known about me is based on my real activities, things that I cannot control, such as, real estate records and things like that. Anything to do with the legal system, you're kind of zucked. So that kind of stuff I can't separate. So you separate them with other means, corporate identities and all that. Just, you can't hide completely, but at least it prevents, easy correlation of the data. And though I'm not necessarily trying to hide, it prevents databases from collecting the data. So believe it or not, just a few simple things that I do is enough. I don't really need to go bonkers over this. It's not a major crisis that I have to worry about. I don't have to jump up and down and say, I got all these cybersecurity issues. I haven't been hacked. Just a brief point in the last, for a couple more minutes here, just a brief point, okay? Hacking is a very specific thing. There's some groups on the internet that are cybersecurity people, and they focus on the cybersecurity hacking side. I don't know if you realize it, but in order to get hacked, the hacker must have a purpose. Hacking doesn't occur, randomly. They just don't hack just, without a reason. Typically, they'll target people for a financial benefit. If they found they can scam you, if they found that, there's money to be gotten, then they can spend more time with you. Yeah, there's phishing attacks and all that, just general data collection to kind of like scan for targets. But the actual hack is not as common as you think. And the reason for that is that there has to be a purpose, and it's very time consuming to hack. As somebody who knows how to hack, I'm going to tell you that most of you who say and come to me that you're being hacked, and most of you are not being hacked. Most. Okay, most of you are just experiencing, automated things that happen, and sometimes even just random bugs that occur in certain things, and you're attributing it to hacking. Hacking is very focused and requires a lot of resources. So why would somebody hack you? Well, somebody like me can get hacked can be a target of hacking because of encryption codes and things like that, since I have servers and people might be interested in that. Somebody who works for a big company that is a system admin would be a target. That's how they targeted Sony. They targeted the people who work there. Relationships, people who are connected to you, and exes especially. Anytime there's family conflict, they have reason to attack you because they want to find out information that they can use against you. Sometimes it has to do with custody battles, and sometimes it's financial. Somebody wants to deal with inheritance and things like that. There's always usually some financial reason to do it. For the most part, that is not the common problem with 90% of the people. 90% of you don't really have to get concerned with that if you just take the very, very basic precautions that I teach, and they're not really all that complicated, like not reusing passwords and things like that. I mean, it's not really all that complicated. Resetting your computer on a frequent basis, all of that is enough. And the real problem is that you're actually emitting data without you realizing it, and that data is being collected by Palantir, three-letter agencies, other governments, Chinese government, the Russian government. All of these people are collecting your data, and that's what you want to block, because you don't want your identity and your data to be out there to be used against you in the future. Okay, so in reality, it's really quite simple. It's not really all that complicated. One of the things, just to close this out, one of the major things you got to think about when you want to think about being safe and secure is to always have multiple identities on the internet. You can't help but have a real name identity on the internet, because that already exists. Whether you like it or not, your real name is on the internet. It's too late for that. But why persist with that? Create a different identity. Go on YouTube with a different identity. Go on Twitter with a different identity. Do not use Facebook, because they force you to have a real identity. Avoid Facebook at all costs, because there's no choice with that. Avoid LinkedIn, because they also force you with a real identity. Beyond that, use a non-real identity, or what's called pseudo-anonymity. And that's really what it's about. Everything that I do is about protecting the collection of the data pair that leads to identity. It's not really about encryption. You can go talk openly on Twitter, and if nobody has an identity, they don't know who's saying it. It doesn't even have to be encrypted. It's about identity. Who's saying it? So the question you need to ask yourself is, you need to just plan out your life so that it's always clear who's saying what on the internet. Okay, so that's really just a quick summary, and I went 3 minutes over, but that's really the main point. So I'm now going to look at your questions, and the problem is you've all been chatting here, and some of this is kind of just in line with what I was talking about. So you can ask your questions again here. Is Tails booted from flash drive hard to track when running Tor? Tails is, super, super secure. First of all, because by default it's not persistent, and it's pretty hard to fingerprint something that's not persistent. The problem with Tails is that it's very, very difficult to use because of that default non-persistency, and the fact that it defaults to Tor, it's slow and all that. So it's not needed for what we have to do. I don't use Tails normally. I mean, Snowden needs to use Tails. The rest of us don't have to worry about that. We just have to do simple things. Use a Google phone, use a VPN or Tor, and use pseudo identities. And if you want to, since I'm only giving you a 70% solution, the 30% left is a lot of stuff. I've talked about it in all my channels here. I don't use a antivirus. I do browser isolation. I'd use Thunderbird for my email, on and on and on. So, just something as basic as this, guys. Email. So everyone in your family uses email. Think about this. Everyone in your family uses email. Some of you use a VPN, but the rest of your family does not. Did you know that your email shows your IP address? How many of you actually know that? When you send an email out, your IP address is on there. So if you email me and you don't have a VPN, I can look at your IP address and pass it through a reverse lookup table, reverse lookup database, and find out who you are. Now, I don't show up in a reverse lookup database because I took care of that, by being careful for many, many years. But most of you will show up in a reverse lookup database, and if you're not if you're not careful, you will show up in a reverse lookup database. Reverse lookup database can be purchased. You can subscribe to them. $300 a year, you can access everyone's reverse IP lookup, like Skyhook Wireless, and there's so many companies selling them. So many. Did Google and Apple merge their databases? What did I miss here? Is there a way to get a bank account without SSN? No. There are things we're like Zuck. There's nothing we can do. Getting a SIM card, banks, buying Bitcoin, anything financial, they kind of got you. So since I can't help that, and I want to be I don't need to be a McAfee, not filing tax returns. If you want to live like a law-abiding citizen, then you kind of have no choice. They kind of control that. But that's government. So yes, I can't hide from the government. That's clear. So I'll hide from everyone else. Since government also uses Palantir. They got them. Do you have to get a degree in can you please answer how I can secure not getting hacked in emails? By the way, hacking, that's a very, very good question. By the way, those who don't want to listen to the Q&A can turn it off now, because the Q&A is random for next hour, and people want to ask questions, so I'll stay in here for till 9:30, an hour from now. Most hacking starts from email. So most malware comes from email. And it's one of the easiest things to attack. My goodness. I mean, to this day, I can attack anyone with an email. If I know your email address and I'm a bad guy, I can attack you. I can track your location. I can track where you are. I can insert malware. There's so many things I can do with email, and things that may not necessarily be found. It's not found by an antivirus. If you know how an antivirus works, you can actually create something that can hide from an antivirus. An antivirus is kind of useless to me. I don't really use an antivirus, okay? But I use a lot of precautions, and one of them is to make sure that my email client does not allow a virus to come in automatically. So far, I've only found one reliable, of all the popular ones. I use Thunderbird. That's it, Thunderbird. If you use Microsoft Outlook, Microsoft Mail, Mac Mail, Apple Mail, Android, Google Mail, Gmail, just about every single client that's popular out there, what will happen is they can be easily be hacked. And it's the way that they made these email clients so that it supports the advertisers. So they're actually allowing emails to track you. So if you get an email from Gap.com or whatever store you buy from, there's always what is called a beacon in there. They're like little trackers that are embedded in the email, and they let that come in. Well, yes. So the advertisers use that to track you to say, did you click on it? Did you open email? And that's a benign use of it. But the hacker can use the same technique to now reverse that and use it against you. So the same technique that advertisers use, which can be benign and useful for marketing, are used by hackers very, very easily. And I did a video many times where I've done that. And one of the main attacks you can do is a beacon attack. And you'll find that you can't, if you use a Thunderbird email, it protects you from that stuff that happens if you don't click on it. See, that's a problem. Some of these other email products, even if you don't click on the email, it will actually auto-download things and infect your system and store it, even if you haven't even looked at it. In contrast, Thunderbird doesn't do that. It doesn't open it up until you've actually clicked on it. It doesn't actually retrieve it until you've clicked on it. So a lot of this malware doesn't come in. Now, this is really simple. Malware comes in by clicking on something. It is very hard for me to click on something on an email. Very, very hard. If somebody sends me a notice from Amazon that says, you have this unpaid bill, this, that, and whatever, and you need to take special action on this, I am going to ignore that. I'm not going to click on that email. I will actually go to Amazon or whatever the website is and look in there and to see if there's any messages for me. I will not click on the email because I know that could be a phishing attack. When I look at an email link, I see, okay, what's a domain? Let me check the certificate. Before I do anything, I check the certificate to make sure that it's valid, to make sure it really is the domain. It's not some trick where they use two U's instead of a W. Like Amazon AWS, and then they spell AWS AUUS. And if you look fast, it looks like AWS, but it's actually not AWS.com. It's actually AUUS.com. A lot of these little tricks. I don't fall for that because I don't click. If I'm going to click on something, I examine it carefully. And that really is 90% of the source of malware. And the other source is if it auto-downloads something, you go to a website, it auto-downloads it. It's going to put it in your downloads folder. So go look at your downloads folder and delete things in there that you don't recognize. And don't click on it. It's really that simple. They can't really get in unless you click and authorize it. The other thing that I do, which is very, very simple, is that my computer is never logged in as the administrator. I don't have root admin rights on my computer. None. So no virus can come in because it can't install unless I have admin rights. Because I'm not an admin, it can't install. So it can't go into a system folder and go replace some existing system function. Because of this, I never have to worry about this. And yet I still, do things like virtual machines and any number of these things when I need to be extra secure. Yes, I sell phones every day. Got a lot of these. Yes. Well, I don't have a lot of them. They're always sold. So I go to Brax Me, and I have a lot of I have a store, and you have to kind of come in every day because phones come and go. So you check today, there's no phone. Tomorrow there's a phone because it's constantly coming in and out. Yes, Jack Roberts, that's a very funny question since I have like a ton of videos on Proton Mail. Why don't you just watch those videos? Would explain it a little bit better. Just a general point here, because this is such a common thing, I don't use Proton Mail. I've told you over and over again, there is no added benefit, and there's actually a disadvantage to using Proton Mail versus my own domain. I use my own email server. I control the server. No one else can see what's on my server except for me. So, and I made this general statement, so I'm going to make a summarized statement from all my videos. Inter-domain mail is never safe. you must not rely on inter-domain mail to be safe at all. If you're going to send from Google to Yahoo, you know, you have to assume it's not safe. MTA to MTA, message transfer agent to message transfer agent, may not be encrypted. It may not. You don't know. So because of that, inter-domain mail, you have to make the assumption that it's not safe. Don't be overconfident with sending email. Don't trust it. The National Zaki Agency collects all that and puts it into the giant database. Now, intra-domain mail, meaning I'm Brax me, so Brax me to Brax me, is as safer actually, than proton mail to proton mail. Why? What is proton mail or proton mail for? Well, it's encrypted, end-to-end encrypted, all this. Yeah. But proton mail can read the metadata, can read all the contact lists, can create relationship maps, and read your non-encrypted mail. So it doesn't matter if it's encrypted. They're getting a lot of data in there. If it's your own email, the only one reading it is you. How can it be less safe to run your own email server? You're paying Proton Mail when you can run your own server, and it's superior to what Proton Mail can provide. I don't know what the point is of Proton Mail. It's not saving you any money. It's not giving you any more safety. I mean, the safest option is your own. The only problem, of course, is it takes some skill to set up your own email server. I understand that. That is the problem. So given that option, I'm going to say, well, given that option, I'd rather just run some even paid email service that is for my domain, even if it's run by somebody else. It's not any better than Proton Mail as far as I'm concerned. Okay? So, if you want to use Proton Mail, I'm not going to, it's not any worse, not any better. But don't think that somehow it gives you some added benefit. It's false. Okay? It's false. My way is better. Is there a way to ask you questions beyond YouTube? Yeah, you go to BraxMe. And then you can hire me for consult. I do offer consults on BraxMe. Otherwise, I can only answer brief questions. I don't have time. You can ask me in a consult on BraxMe. You can book a consult. Their whole point is making privacy easily accessible to everyone. Whatever. Okay, do you think the 2,000 Librem 5 made in the U.S. worth it? No, it's not worth it for me. I don't need a $2,000 Librem 5 phone. But if I work for the National Zaki Agency, maybe. I don't need it, but, certain kinds of people might find some value in that. Are password applications like KeePass or Keeper Security safe for storing passwords on? Yes. I use KeePass myself. Yes, I would say most of them are pretty safe. I prefer an open source one. So I used to use LastPass, which is not open source. Open source ones are usually better. And there are many of those. I use KeePass. Use whatever you want. How do you stop malware from attacking you through your Thunderbird email? Just don't click. Very simple, Richard. Don't click. Don't click on a link. Don't click on an attachment. You want to you say, well, I really want to look at this link. Well, copy the link and post it on a Tor browser. Rich Cable says good night. Let's see. WireGuard is easier hacked than OpenVPN. We don't know yet. WireGuard is too new. We don't. There's not enough research yet on if there are any flaws on. Somebody found a flaw in OpenVPN, so a lot of the OpenVPN servers had to be upgraded to a higher cipher because somebody found a flaw some years back. So yeah. So nothing is perfect. So you know, sometimes it takes time for some of this. Again, I don't focus too much on cybersecurity. I focus on privacy because that's the bigger problem. Okay, and in terms of context, 90% of our issue is privacy, 10% is cybersecurity. Is 1Password secure? I never used it, but you know, like I said, I prefer open source. I have no idea if 1Password is open source or not. Have you seen the phones lady from Tom Green? Don't know what that means. Do you think KeePass plugin on the browser is dangerous? Yes, I would tend to shy away from KeePass plugins. So what I do is I have a I run a KeePass app, and I cut and paste. And there's, you know, on Windows, fortunately, they have a nice app that, you know, is on Windows already, and I can just keep it open, and then I just copy from it directly. So that's kind of easy on Windows. KeePass you can use directly on Linux. Try not to use browser plugins. A browser plugin is someone inserting foreign JavaScript on every website. So it's kind of dangerous. A lot of bad things happen when you use browser plugins. So I tend not to use any browser plugins. Plus, it identifies you with browser fingerprinting. Do you know an app called Strongbox? No. He can track multi-dimensional electric curve on a T185. All open source and offline password manager safe opinion. Generally, I would trust most open source offline manager, but my personal experience has been with KeePass, which I use on all. So I have it on, the concept of KeePass is all you have to do is share the database, which is a file with all your passwords on it, and it's locked, by a password. And it doesn't matter where you keep it. You can actually keep your database in the cloud, in the open, even on Dropbox. I would never use Dropbox. I used to use Dropbox. And because it's passworded and they can't really break into it. So the concept is you have to bring it to you locally and then open up the file. And then you have to use your key if you use a KeePass app. Is --lane password? You asking me all these questions about every single password manager, and I've already generally answered it. HTTPS everywhere plug-in is not. Why do you need that? Just go HTTPS. Do you really need a plugin to tell you to be HTTPS? It's actually default anyway on many browsers now. What open source? Don't use the only open source keyboard I use comes with AOSP. I do not use keyboards. If I'm going to use an open source keyboard, it's going to come from F-Droid. Otherwise, no. IMSI Catcher, I have a whole video on that. Go watch the video. Stingray. Nobody watched that video. That video only has what? 3,000 views? Stingray. What's the difference between open and closed source? What does that mean? OHB doesn't know what that means. Open source means the source code is published out in the open for people to see. So you can actually see how they programmed it. Closed source means proprietary, meaning you don't know how they wrote it. So anything that's open source can be examined by somebody to see if it really is secure. For example, my app Brax Me is open source. So somebody can look in there and say, is he doing X or Y? And you can just check the source code because it's open. Typically because, it's open source, you're not going to hide and do anything, tricky or nasty because it's going to be obvious. You just ruin your reputation. So no one's going to do that on something like a password manager. If it's open source, it's going to be legit. If you change the SIM card, does it change your IMSI? Yes, but it doesn't change your IMEI. Open board is a AOSP available on F-Droid. Okay. Are ad blockers plug-in unsafe? They can be, because any plugin is problematic because you're introducing JavaScript. So I run my ad blocking usually. There's two ways you can do ad blocking from an app, which you can do on a computer, and the other way to do it is using Pi-hole. Pi-hole blocks the ads by DNS blocking. They block the domain. And my VPN, all you have to do is use my VPN, bytesvpn.com. It blocks with Pi-hole. So when you use Bytes VPN, you automatically get Pi-hole with it. Okay, so why is the video is frozen? Okay, hold on. Why is video frozen? Okay, that's weird. Okay, video froze, so I just restarted it. Okay. OBS frozen there. Okay. Yeah, the app, OBS app, locked up. Don't know why. It's open source. Okay, so what's the other question? Okay, you are moving now. Okay, there you go. I wonder how long I was frozen. Hopefully not too long. Okay, can we save Mozilla? Will it save us in a privacy fight? Bytes VPN pairs blocks all ads on TWU. Must have been hacked. Need a bank to verify. PayPal. When it comes to financial, you kind of, have to treat it as a different identity. So you can't cheat on that. It's all tied to the financial system. So do I use a fake identity with banking? No. If you want to do, some sort of obfuscation of data with banking, you have to open up a corporation, which can be expensive. So, which I do. So I have, corporate framework for that. But other than that, if from an individual point of view, you can't do it. So, for example, I use corporate bank accounts, corporate cards without my name on it. What do you think of Privacy Badger? Privacy Badger is not needed now because of the way that browser fingerprinting is done. So instead of using Privacy Badger, when you use Brave browser, a lot of that will be the same. And you don't get fingerprinted because Privacy Badger is kind of a fingerprint. Have you tried simple login? No. Somebody asked me something else. I don't know if you need browser isolation for financial. You just need identity isolation. Somebody asked me about Bitcoin. Is Bitcoin private? No, Bitcoin is not private from government. Government can track it, but there are ways to make it disappear. And one of the ways you do it is using incognito.org. So watch my video on incognito.org. And basically, it's a wallet that converts the Bitcoin to PRV coin. And when I first made that video, PRV was valued at 38 cents. And if you stored your Bitcoin as PRV 38 cents, apparently it's now $1.75. So you would have made, my gosh, that's many multiples. So if you have PRV coin, you've gained a lot of money. So they're doing well. So incognito.org. It had a lot of bugs, but it's what you can use on your phone. and it's a wallet, and it can accept Bitcoin and Ether and so on. Brave browser is based on Chromium. It's not all that. Brave browser is not, some major change. It's just Chromium, which is the same thing as Chrome. So, you don't need to fear what's happening on a Brave browser. Chrome bug not good. Can we reformat society to be privacy oriented? I have this huge problem with most people not paying attention to me, and I'm talking about, people I know in real life. And it's amazing that, by the way, this channel has grown to what, 46 and a half thousand subscribers so far. I was at 40,000 last week. I'm at 46 this week. I'm going to be in 50 next week. In a week's time, I'll be at 50,000 subscribers. I'll end the year at what? 90,000? I mean, that's the pace right now. I mean, it's incredible. And yet, in real life, guys, nobody pays attention to me. I'll talk to relatives and friends, and I'll tell them about the dangers of privacy, and they'll ignore me. So to most average people, I'm a conspiracy theorist, and there's not a single conspiracy in what I'm talking about. It's like saying, well, that's a conspiracy theory. Nobody's really doing anything. It's like, oh yeah, I guess Palantir doesn't exist. So nobody cares about what I'm doing, but it's really great that here on YouTube I'm starting to get some traction. I know that even if I get to 100K viewers or subscribers, and millions have already seen my video, but even if I get to 100K subscribers, that's still a small part of the population. It wouldn't be nice if 1% of the people in the world paid attention to me. 1%. That would be awesome. Right now we're in small fractions there. 0.0000 whatever. I mean, it's like, fraction. Thank you, Eve's Cone. Eve's, is that Cone? I know the feeling likewise here. A lot of you have this experience. You have this fear about what's going on, and you hate it. Like I hate it. And it's not about, people say, you have your conspiracy theories. You think the government is spying on you. It's not even, as much as I hate what the government does, I wish it were just the government, but it's not. And we went to a society where I expected the government to be spying on me. I don't like it, but I expected it. But lately now everyone's spying on me. And now, when corporate entities spy on you, and then somebody collects that data into a big entity like Palantir, boy, the Palantir concept. I need to do a video about them, but I don't know if anyone will watch it. Palantir is a very scary concept. Here's a private company that's collecting all of your data from the internet. All of it. And they have a government contract, so they can also look at your driver's license, your health records, your insurance records, everything else that they have on you, IRS records, because they're tied to the government. So they actually have access to all records. It's very, very scary. Very, very scary. So Peter Thiel made a comment once, about the, logic for having Palantir, and basically said, well, it's a choice. You either have security or you have privacy. So we made a choice. We're going to choose security. That's a false statement. Security is not tied to privacy. I mean, security is not tied to mass. If the cost of society is such that you have to spy on every single person to catch, a 0.0000001% of terrorists, there's got to be another way, and there is another way. But they don't really want that. They want to collect the data, and are using the excuse of terrorism to collect the data. They don't even need it. In the intelligence community, you can do what is called chatter to look for patterns that suggest that something bad is going to happen or happening. Then you can focus your attention on that narrow area. That is not equal to mass surveillance. That's two different things. Voter registration is being sold to other nation states. I think there's, there are even, I think, like public databases of that. I'm sure Palantir has that. Is John Doe a private name or too obvious? I am not in the USA agencies. I don't think Rob will open a corporate account. Where would I not open a corporate account? Should I browser setting like telemetry? Do you recommend using a VPN? If so, which one for daily use? Yes, use bytesvpn.com. Guys, VPNs require trust. Okay, there's a lot of things that require trust. One of my new videos is about using a open source video server, and if you want to use mine, it's meet.brax.live. And if you trust me, you can use it. If you don't trust me, make your own server, and then you can have private video. But I promise you, I will not examine or do anything to any video that's happening on Jitsi using meet.brax.live. So that's a promise. And I've never broken that promise on anything. So if you trust me, you can just use that. If you don't trust me, set up your own, watch my video, set up your own server, which you can do for, $5-10 a month. Can you please open a corporate account for me? If how much would you charge? Corporate account for you? Go to your lawyer. Have your lawyer do that for you. Do you think it is a conflict of interest for Peter Thiel to be in the board of directors of Facebook, Twitter, and on Palantir? Peter Thiel and Elon Musk were one of the first money sources for Facebook. So they took their money from PayPal, and then they pumped into to Facebook and pumped it into Facebook. And obviously, Facebook is in conformity with what Peter Thiel is trying to collect, which is your data, since Facebook collects that. So that is not, he's trying to make money. Peter Thiel is making money from data collection. And it's kind of an evil business, let me tell you. Evil business. Okay? And there's nothing to do with politics. It's an evil business. I believe somebody said Bitwarden is open source. Somebody said that. Thank you, Dizzy Spider. Thank you. By the way, guys, my channel is not, if you understand, my channel is very small, and, this is not some big company, even my VPN. This is a small company. And I make all my money from all these videos and your support. So there's many ways you can support me. If you're going to think about a VPN, why not choose bytesvpn.com, support the privacy of this channel, and get yourself rewarded with a good VPN. We have, servers in Europe, in North America, including Canada, Australia, and India. So those are mostly typically the people that watch me here. And we got servers in all those areas. And some servers in Europe are moving. So you can benefit from the VPN. I have a Brax router, so you can even expand the VPN to a Brax router with my Brax router product. And again, something that you can do to benefit yourself. And I personally support all this. And you're helping the channel. And for those of you who buy a de-Googled phone, I hire people to de-Google these. And this, again, is another way to support the channel. And again, one of the other ways to support the channel is by being a Patreon and contributing to Patreon to this channel on a monthly basis. So it's all in the description. And I just hope you understand that this is all important to keep this channel going. If you want to support privacy and what I need to do here, it's very hard. I did this for many years without any income. Put me in a big hole. So there's other things I can do. I'm a top level system chief software architect. With executive management experience for decades, and I could be doing that, and I don't do that, and I just said I want to do this instead, and I'm spending all my time doing this, and it's kind of a demotion in a way, but it makes me feel good to be doing it for you guys, but I appreciate the support you give to support the channel. It's it's really appreciated. A few of you signed up on Patreon lately, and I appreciate that. Again, there's not that many supporters on Patreon, but it's really if there was many of you that that we could sustain this channel and really do many things, and including hire people to help me, because it's really hard to do this by myself. So I appreciate it, and even if you just buy product, that would be so appreciated. Is uOrigin safe to use on Firefox? Don't know. Regards from Argentina. You should be add Spanish subtitles on some vlogs. I'm not sure exactly how to do that. Somebody offered to do Spanish translations. I got to learn how to do that. Most of my main market is in the English speaking world. So not sure. Could you make a video about SELinux? Oh, yes, I do want to make a video about SELinux, but not about how do you program it. You can't just say, I'm going to use SELinux. It doesn't work like that. SELinux is compiled into each application. So basically, if you're going to use SELinux, every single application, you have to have the source code, and you have to embed SELinux in it, and then you have to compile it. So you're kind of at the mercy of whoever built the OS and all the apps. Like SELinux is, very meticulously made on Android. Linux desktop only has SELinux available on system apps. They don't have SELinux enabled on the average app. So you don't actually have a lot of security compared to a standard Android on Linux, because of SELinux is not on there. Some of it is auto learning. So SELinux can auto learn, like another one that's used as App Armor. And yes, I will make a video explaining that a little bit, but mostly it's made to explain how a Linux phone may not be as safe, cybersecurity wise, as an Android phone. Android phone is actually much more secure because of SELinux. My people, do they know my people? My people, do they know my people? What does that mean? Always assume that everything can be hacked at some point. I got the same email from Amazon. Amazon should be more forthcoming about the incident. They are more hush-hush. Is there an email server that you can't hack, or is there an email server? Email servers is a different thing than email clients. My email server, it's continuous. People continuously, spammers continuously try to hack. Well, to add spam to your, that's what I mean by hacking, is they just try to send spam to your email server. But and this is a constant thing. They find a little trick. They find some flaw, and then they use that and then get into your server. And I haven't had that issue in a long time, because but you have to kind of keep up with it. There's always something new that they found. Do you ship your products to Australia? Oh yes, I ship to Australia all the time. There's always somebody. Most of the people who buy from me are from English-speaking countries, so you can expect that I sell a lot of products to Australia, to Canada, obviously the U.S., most of Europe, not so much to Russia. In fact, I don't recall ever. I think it's because it's English-speaking countries only. So India. Anyone who speaks English will tend to watch my videos. So those are where I sell a lot of products to. And Canada, I believe, is my third. In terms of viewership, its top viewership is from U.S., Canada, and then I believe it's followed by Australia and India. So yes. Amazon. Okay, what am I missing here? Do you do white labeling for your VPN? I suppose I could do that, but if I did that, you'd have to support it. So which email servers clients do you recommend? Email client is Thunderbird, which is only in a computer. It's not available on mobile. Email servers, whatever. I use Linux. I use Postfix. It's not what you use. It's how you configure it. So I use Postfix. I speak French, and I watch your videos. But you know how to speak English. Rob, any opinion on Google Fi for phone service? Don't know. You may have to treat them like any other phone company. Do the phones you sell have the bootloader locked and verified boot? No. If you want bootloader locked, I do it on OnePlus 6. OnePlus 6. That's about the only one. The rest are not. Does it matter? No. Because if you're going to say that matters, then go buy the extremely expensive Graphene OS. Do you need that? Not really. I mean, I don't use it. I just use Lineage OS. It's some of this overkill. You don't need that. It's 99% of what you need is right here. Thank you, Kier Writer. Thank you so much, and thank you for your support of this channel. As I said, your support is the only thing that keeps us going. And Graphene is not free. The phone is expensive. It only works on expensive Pixel phones. So you're going to spend a lot of money for a Pixel phone. I use inexpensive phones. Yes, this is a Pixel 3. I was never able to install Graphene on here. So if you're going to buy have somebody install Graphene on there, if you're not going to do it yourself, it's going to get expensive. You're going to talk about $700, $800 for a phone. You can buy a new phone for that. I use tin cans and a string. Is iPhone really the best camera? No, the best camera. These are the best. The best camera, what I'm using right now. I'm using a Sony. What model is this? I'm using a Sony. What do you call that? Anyway, it's an expensive camera with DSLR. And then I have. This is great. 4K camera. Gimbaled. It's called Osmo. What is it? Osmo Pocket. I mean, this kind of camera, this thing is like tremendous. Look how tiny that is. Oh, my iPhone is better. No, this is gimbaled. Seriously. Not even the same league. Not even in the same league. I went on site. It showed my emails that was breached. How the heck? Yeah, it's change emails, change passwords. Osmo Pocket, yes. I went on how you know camera doesn't have hidden camera. How do you know camera doesn't have hidden camera? Because there's no internet. Whereas your phone has internet. This one does not have internet. This is amazing. This is an amazing camera. It's just, let me see if I can turn it on. There. And it's, like I said, it's gimbal. I don't have the gimbal connector here right now. But, yeah, you know. So sometimes I use it in some videos when I'm outside. So this is what I use for outside video now. So that's, and you're saying, my iPhone is great. Don't think so. This is 4K. You feel bad for Snowden. Under 300, that's way less than an iPhone. The one I'm using now, the Sony I'm using here, I believe was $1,400 or $1,500. So that's an expense. The camera I'm using right here is expensive. And you know, look at live streaming quality. It's 4K. This one is Osmo. So Osmo Pocket. That one is Sony. Then I have a. This one is a Canon. This is my other camera. So this is another great camera for vlogging, and it's a Canon G7X Mark II. So I'm gonna have to sell this. So yeah, so I can sell this one. Probably. I'm gonna guess $475. I believe I paid $800 for this. I looked at eBay, and the pricing is that this is selling for about around $475. So that seems to be the fair price for it, $475. So I'll probably sell this. So if you want it, it comes with a case. So that's another $30-$40 right there. So yeah, I'll sell that. It's very, it's a very good vlogging camera. What implications do you think GPT-3 AI will have on data mining and security? What implication do you think GPT-3 AI will have on data mining and security? What is GPT-3? That sounds familiar, but what is GPT-3? AI is a problem in general, so that's what Palantir is doing. It's if you actually understand even how YouTube videos are made. Did you know that when you send a video to YouTube, it doesn't just take your tags and create a feed for that. YouTube actually looks at frame by frame. Everything I say, it records. It actually transcribes everything I say. So if I say a bad word, they actually record how many times I said it. If they look and see what objects I'm showing here, they actually will recognize the model. They will recognize that I'm showing an Osmo Pocket here. They will recognize that. They will recognize objects in the back. They look for the presence of any number of things on the video. And the AI actually knows this. So you can imagine if it can do that on me, on a video here, they can do it anything you post on Facebook. Can you imagine what they can collect on any single, including videos and who's in the background and what you're doing and what products you're using? Let's say I have a soda can behind me. They're going to use that and actually identify that I have X product in there. What do they make you put in quarters in Swear jar. Best privacy custom ROM for Samsung. All you need is Lineage OS without gaps. That's it. You don't need to get fancy. That's great. Please just go to Lineage OS. No gaps. Perfect. Don't get too fancy. Do I need Calyx OS? Do I need Graphene OS? Just go to the most supported one, which is Lineage OS. That's fine. If you want to go overboard and, because you have a fancy Pixel, then you can load Graphene. That's fine too. But you don't need to specifically look for it. Can Bytes VPN used on Ubiquiti firewalls? I don't know. I don't know if you can put a VPN on a Ubiquiti router. I have Ubiquiti devices, but I changed the OS on it. So don't know. Talk about NSO. What is NSO? National Security Organization. What is NSO? If I put gaps on my Lineage OS, can I uninstall it? No. No. Once you put gaps in, you are zucked. No. Gaps replaces existing files. So your contacts will no longer be your normal AOSP contacts. It will be the gaps contacts. Your keyboard will not be the normal AOSP keyboard. It will be the Google keyboard. Your Wi-Fi driver, everything will change. The settings, they actually replace AOSP. So once it's there, you can't take it out because, how do you bring it back to the old way? No, you can't do it. Does Bytes VPN need to be authenticated into a service to run? Well, obviously it has to authenticate into my server to validate that you have an account. I also intend to release a CSV support later on. Sony has great support for Xperia phones, AOSP break. They're kind of expensive. That's the reason why I don't deal with Xperia phones. They're expensive. They're in the high price category. I'm just trying to keep my costs down. So is Palantir evil? Oh my gosh, it's probably the most evil thing I've ever seen. What's more evil, the National Zucking Agency or Palantir? I'm going to say Palantir. That's the worst breach of privacy you can just describe. Well, you mean my videos? My videos are public, so it's public. But imagine if they did this to private videos. Suck. Some of you are saying, I'm going to store my videos on Google Photos. It's like, suck. Do you really want that? Their AI can examine all of your photos. How to ask questions? By the way, you can go to Brax.me, like I said. Go to my app, Brax.me, and you can talk to the community there. If I can't answer, somebody may answer you. And you can, I offer consult services. So you can book a consult, and then I can spend some time with you to help you with a problem. And then we can do it over chat. Use Peppermint Linux OS. Alexis and Echo are evil. It is so hard to avoid them. Hard to avoid them. Mad cow. That's pretty crazy. How hard is it to avoid them? I don't have any, Echo here, and I don't go to any houses with an Echo. Will Facebook and Google antitrust kill Mozilla? Will kill our privacy? I don't know. I really can't believe we are getting such well-researched content for free. I don't think people appreciate that. Some people actually complain that they say, I don't know what I'm talking about. Let me just say this, and just to make it clear, while we're running out of time here, so I'll close it out with this. Tor's pretty good. Let me just tell you this. Not everything that I will tell you is something that, I've proven with laboratory experiments. Some of it has to come from, like a journalist, it has to come from people. So people talking about it, and people say things. So, for example, somebody said, somebody was arguing with me about, the Qualcomm chip that's on your phone, on an iPhone, which has the Wi-Fi scanning and triangulation code. And it was actually made by this company called Skyhook Wireless, and it's embedded in the hardware on an iPhone. So that's why you can't turn it off. It's embedded in the hardware. It's on a chip. It's in a Qualcomm chip. Somebody was arguing with me and saying, "You don't do that. That's not true." And like, well, how do you know? Do you work for Qualcomm? Do you know what do you actually do you participate in making the ROM? How do you know that? Well, the reason I know it is because I found a video where the CEO, president of Skyhook Wireless, said so. Do you understand that? I mean, I'm going to look for clues where people say things, and Google says things, and I say, oh yeah, so you don't delete your Google Voice stuff because they said so. Amazon doesn't delete it. They said so. So Apple deletes it after 6 months. They said so. So don't come to me and say that, I'm feeding you a bunch of bull, because I'm not going to, I don't BS you. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I'm going to base it on something that is a reasonable thing to expect based on research. And in some cases, if I don't know for a fact, I will know that if some technology is made available for me to do bad stuff, then somebody will use that technology. If I know what it is, somebody else will know what it is. One example to close this out is if somebody knows how to use supply chain hacks to put malware in hardware, they will do it. Obviously, somebody can do it. Obviously, it's already been done. Now, because you haven't found it, you're going to assume it hasn't happened? Well, that's a foolish assumption on your part. Okay? Hello, Rex. So if you haven't discovered it, that it doesn't exist, that's not the way I think, guys. Okay? There's nothing to stop supply chain malware. Nothing. It's very easy to do. So if they can do it, yes, they can do it. They will do it. So they can insert it into chips, into, kind of like Intel and the IME. It's in a side chip operating on the side. There's some type of font going on right now. Maybe not. Some type of font hack. Oh, font hack. Yeah. That's right. Do you know about block stack system? Any blockchain thing is, you got to be careful about blockchain. Though I'm a big financial believer in blockchain, understand that blockchain means permanent. This is anti-privacy. Anything you do in blockchain cannot be erased. That's how blockchain works. So somebody said, should I use Steemit and email on blockchain? Pretty darn bad move, I would say. Okay, guys, so out of time. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. Again, thank you for your support on Patreon, for buying products on the Brax.me store. Just go to Brax.me, log in, sign up. It doesn't ask for anything. Just create a username and log in. There's not going to ask for any data. So don't be afraid to sign in. It doesn't ask for anything. And then when you're in, go to the menu, you see store. And then you can find people there, and you will find some group chats and blogs and so on. And it's an open source system, and it's encrypted. And you're welcome to hang out there, and I run that as a community service. Okay, and so thank you for your support there, and support also my sponsor Linode. Thank you. Will you catch you next time, guys? Yes, thank you. Good night.